Thank you guys for coming out to help find medicine. Give yourselves a hand for hanging out with us all day. I know it's everything's running a little bit behind here. They asked me to facilitate this little trip for us quick, and I know some of you are hungry, but I do appreciate you sticking with the strict dieta. We're gonna get started. At first I'm gonna have everyone kind of introduce themselves. This is kind of the upswing, so expect that to feel like a little awkward, maybe a little bit of nausea. And then the conversation's really gonna come on, and then I'm come down to Q&A. But yeah, I don't need to introduce myself because I didn't realize he was going to do the world's longest introduction for me. So yeah, that's who I am. It's better than having to awkwardly call myself an award-winning comedian. I did my documentary Psychonautics just premiered last week, and we won an audience award at the Dances with Films Festival. We're going to be showing 20 minutes of it during the film thing after this. And yeah, so I'll let these guys introduce themselves, and then maybe I'll share a little bit of my psychedelic background as well. I'll just kind of feel it out. So.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Elizabeth Bast. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks, Brad. A few years ago, the Iboga medicine found me. It's not just us finding the medicine. I was searching for a treatment when my beloved of many years told me he had a heroin relapse, and that plant called to me from the depths of my consciousness, and I found it. And then I found out in my research it was good for PTSD, which is something I had struggled with for a long time. So I did the medicine right next to my love for my own reasons, and it changed our life in 24 hours with a lot of work after that. A lot of integration. I wrote a book about our experience called Heart Medicine, A True Love Story. It's very intimate. The medicine wanted it that way. And it's down in the Art and Music Lounge, along with my love's amazing Iboga-inspired artwork. And then we went on to go to Africa, and we were initiated with the Bwiti, went through the rite of passage. We've been there 3 times now, spending a lot of time in the jungle and learning from the indigenous people, and we're in training to be providers, medicine willing at some point. Spent a lot of time at Iboga Soul, supporting ceremonies in Canada. I also serve as a preparation and integration coach for the entheogenic medicine work. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Chor Boogie, and I'm an artist. Yes, as my wife said, my artwork is in the, what was that room?
Art and Music Lounge.
The Art and Music Lounge.
Across the way.
And yes, this, how I was introduced to this medicine was basically life-saving, the Iboga medicine. And it saved my life. And pretty much, that sums it all up. You know, I've gone down a pretty hard path in my life, and from there, I don't say I fucked up or anything. I basically went back into lesson, and when I went back into lesson, I ended up finding the plant medicine Iboga. So you know, my wife, she went outside and started talking to some trees, and you know, they told her Iboga. And then from there, you know, it was more like, you know, I wasn't really too keen on it, too hyped on it, because it was like, yeah, this stuff is pretty intense, pretty dangerous. But I needed to do something to save my life, and I had to make that choice. And that choice was to go and do that. And then once I did that, I was really like, what the hell was I scared for? You know, it was more like I needed to do that to save my life. And that's where that taken me. So, yeah, that's it right there. Hold on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Holub, and I come to these medicines. I love several of them with a deep reverence for the teachings that they have given me and the help they have given me. My focus for many years now has been on teaching, experiencing, and sharing messages of forgiveness in many different settings. And I have realized that with an expanded model of forgiveness, it's really what the medicines help us to do in some really deep ways. And I've experienced that myself, so that some of it's trip navigation of how to expect and welcome the deep letting go on a soul level that we experience with many of these medicines. And then also during our integration period, to know that forgiveness in this expanded way is not about just one time for one issue. It's really a new way of life, that we can be giving away our pain and sorrow to the spirit that gives us life, and we can be receiving blessings and grace and intuition. So that's what I'm very interested in. I'm passionate about it. And I feel like we can learn a lot about that with these medicines, but we also need to learn how to do that without any extra, just breath by breath every day. Oh, also, I am a Being True to You coach, so I work with people who are recovering from addictions and also who are exploring medicines for psycho-spiritual support and healing.
What's the name of your book one more time?
Oh yeah, and I wrote a book. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wrote a book. It's available next door to Elizabeth's beautiful book. It's called Forgive and Be Free.
And my name is Roman, and I'm here to talk about a different kind of medicine, a non-plant-based medicine called ketamine, which some of you may have heard about. For about the past year and a half, I've been doing work with a brilliant humanitarian and psychiatrist named Dr. Terrence Early in Santa Barbara. And we've had some amazing sessions together. I came to ketamine because I had tried everything else that conventional medicine had to offer, all of the antidepressants and so on and so forth. Very similar story to many others here. And it came just in the nick of time. And it's been truly, truly remarkable on many levels. And I'm here to talk about that and help anybody in any way that I can. I also have my trusted research assistant who has sat on my chest through every one of my sessions with Dr. Early, and which there have been many, and there have been far and wide. Thank you.
I'm Michael Scott. Can you hear me on that? I'm here because, well, about 5 years ago, I was facing a lot of major problems, and cannabis saved my life. It was about 400 pounds on a bunch of pharmaceuticals, sleep apnea, narcolepsy, high blood pressure, had multiple injuries in my life, traumatic brain injury, car, motorcycle accidents, trauma to my spine, and so forth. So I was on a ton of pills, and I went searching for a way to save myself, watching friends and family die of going through radiation, chemo, and as I faced going in for operations, I searched and I found Rick Simpson oil, and cannabis oil that I kept popping up, and I spent a bunch of time trying to figure that out, and I've been on a mission to help spread the word about these amazing plants and compounds that we can use to help heal ourselves mentally, physically. And so, yeah, that's why I'm up here too, trying to spread the good word and share what my experience has been and how that all came about. So, thank you.
All right, it's amazing. We don't like to make any grand claims here, but he did cure cancer with cannabis, everybody. That's amazing. I've had, my history is I just stumbled upon mushrooms when I was 16, so mid-90s, just off trying to get into whatever trouble I could. And I was a really depressed, awkward kid, and I'm still kind of depressed and awkward, I guess, but mushrooms really helped for me. After that, I tried LSD and some MDMA, and mushrooms are always the thing that I returned to. I now use like MDMA for kind of relationship stuff, but I always had a bunch of material about psychedelics, and I always did like sciencey themed shows, or for the last like 7 years or so. And like 5 years ago, I had all these psychedelic jokes that I wasn't doing anything with. And 5 years ago, I had DMT for the first time, which like blew my mind, and I saw everything that there is and never will be. And then it told me to like tell people about it, and I was like, all right, you scary weirdo, I guess I'll tell people about DMT. And like next thing I know, I'm like thrown into this odd psychedelic world, hanging out with you guys. So yeah, that's how I got here. But this is so. One that I haven't done that I want to hear about is Iboga, because I remember I got offered Iboga to like a trip to come down and try it, and I ran into Rick Doblin, and I was like, hey Rick, I'm thinking about going down to try Iboga, but I've heard it can be like a 24-hour nightmare. And he's like, oh no, it can be much longer than that. And I've heard stories like this, and then on the other side of it, then I hear, the amazing stories like you guys. Can you talk a little bit about what the actual first experience was like? And I also want to hear, I have so many questions, because this is something that a lot of people, if they do it like once in their entire life, but I take it you guys have done it.
Multiple
We'll take that one apart
Sure.
according to the indigenous views.
Go for it.
Okay, I'd love to jump in on this. Yeah, it's not a soothing medicine. The first Iboga journey that I had was so intense and terrifying. It was like 12 hours of visionary bardo, just the Olympics of meditation. But we had very good navigational guidance from the fire talk right before it, and I almost didn't want to do it again. I was sweating, it was uncomfortable. You would have thought I was detoxing from drugs because I purged so much. And at dawn, when at least the most intense experiences started to ground, I felt this presence and this knowing of like, no, I'm going to experience all that this medicine has to offer. And very humble, I wanted to come to this medicine as an apprentice and not a consumer. And I'm so glad I did, because the second journey was so different. The journeys can be so different. They can be so different depending on your constitution and your nervous system and where you're coming from. Sometimes they're visionary, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it has me linger on the precipice of my fears until I relax there. So it is difficult, and it can be very worth it. And I've never seen any transformation so dramatic as his face in 24 hours, where I saw his soul again, where I couldn't see. He was so polluted I could barely recognize him. So it was my own experience, his experience, and yes, they do a big initiation, in the Bwiti for most people one time. Shamans will have more. However, they use it all the time. They use it all the time in smaller doses for community ceremonies and connection, and often they wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and have iboga almost every day for those serious Bwiti people, but in smaller amounts.
That's that's amazing. Chor Boogie, by the way, awarded best name of the conference. So how about a hand for that? Chor, can you because this panel is because we're sharing our personal stories. This panel's a little less graphs and head and a little more heart. Can you share a little bit, maybe even give people a little taste of the darkness that you got yourself into, and then were able to crawl out of, and what that experience was like?
You want to go there, huh? Okay, so like I said earlier, yes, I had a pretty interesting life growing up, and you know, I pretty much turned to the streets when it comes to that side of the darkness. Not saying that it's all bad, but there was some bad stuff that happened, you know, choices that I made. But choosing to go down those paths took me down some really dark avenues, and I needed to get out. I always knew that I wasn't going to stay there, but I needed to get out. So, and when it comes to numbing yourself, yeah, drugs were definitely a part of that darkness. And so I went down that path really hard to the bottom and swam down there and came back up, went back in, came back up, went back in. But experiencing iboga and getting to that point out of or going into lesson and then getting out of that and getting to a point where I needed to help myself, iboga was that experience. You know, I have experienced many other plant medicines, but this was the one for me. You know, you may have your own that is the one for you, but this one in particular was for me after I experienced it. Geez, that first experience was like, it's nothing, it was something else. It was, actually I thought it wasn't working. I was just laying there, blindfold on, medicined out, and it was just dark. You know, something was there. The darkness was just hovering there. That nothing was just hovering there over me, but I still thought nothing was happening. I still thought this wasn't, like, you know, taking an effect until I started hearing a voice like, Chor, calm the fuck down, relax, relax. You know, I started hearing that inner voice, that soul. And I was like, what the hell is this? Because, you know, I didn't really expect to really hear anything like that. You know, really, I never really went down a path like this as far as, like, you know, knowing or believing in these type of medicines. They were always like a party tool to me when it came to like LSD and mushrooms and all that stuff. But getting to the real getting to the other plant medicines, as far as like ayahuasca and iboga, yeah, like that experience was just was something else. I mean, like no other. Nothing that I can explain, but I'm going to explain it to you. You know, I went in and really had to do some really soul deep searching once this medicine started taking effect and started really like working. I had to go in and do the work. And once I went in to do the work, you know, like Elizabeth said, within that 24 hours, or not even 24 hours, like right after that session, I came out, jumped up, and like was like, whoa, shit, that shit really worked. It was like shit off a whole new thing, unplugged me from the matrix, and just like, boom. You know, we're in the world. We're in the real world. This is reality. So you know, after that, I just said, I love my life. And that was the fundamental basis of what this really is when it comes to all these medicines that are in cahoots with each other, is that it's showing you a way to love your life. And it's up to you at the end of the day if you really want to listen. If you don't listen, then that's on you. So I chose to listen. Granted, nothing's perfect and nothing will be perfect, but we can always strive to move ahead. You know, like these beautiful paintings of artwork that are around here. You gotta treat your life as such, because your life is an art form. So love it, know it, feel it, be true to it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's all about the truth and what you tell yourself. Bast. That means like word or like thank you. Or truth. In the Bwiti, it's like a Bwiti expression, you know, and that is a tribe that that is a lineage that me and Elizabeth are a part of. Yes. Next.
Bill.
Yeah, I mean, fine, I'll do iboga. I mean, hit me over the head with it.
Oh, it goes deeper than that.
So quickly, how many times have you, not as much time, since that was like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, 4
How
or
many
5.
times have you
Done iboga?
done iboga since then?
Oh man, like, you know, I love it. It's a part of my life. So, you know, it's just like it's
Never in the United States.
No, not in the
Wow.
United States. Don't do it here. Until they legalize it. But yeah, I got a pretty high tolerance to it. Yeah, you can say that.
That's amazing. I've never talked with anyone that's done iboga a bunch before, so this is a treat for me.
Actually, I took a little bit before I got up here. So.
When we were in Canada this morning.
Wait, are we all a part of your iboga trip right now? I hope you remember us when you wake up and arise from the dirt that they buried you in the
Yes.
tribe in Africa. I hope
Yes.
you'll...
Yes.
Shane, by
I
the
will
way,
remember.
hey, remember me.
I'll remember.
Roman, I wanted to go to you because this is another difficult experience to articulate. I've only done ketamine one time. It was also with Dr. Terry Early, and my one experience was, it was a little, I mean, DMT is the only thing that I could compare it to, and it was, just in terms of it was a dissociative kind of effect. It was, everything kind of went black, and then I saw this kind of ball of energy come in, and then it was, I don't know if it's like BBC World or something like that, where they have like a globe spinning around, and then there's like little frames of little action from around the world, like popping out here and there in that globe. That's like what this ball was just this dense ball of all these different scenes happening around the world. And that's all that I can remember from it. But it's just once, and I was on camera, and so I didn't really get to fully get in there. So I'm curious to hear what your experience was.
Well, first of all, I have to say, and I'm almost a little bit ashamed to say it in this crowd, but I was really one of the, remember the Just Say No campaigns?
Oh, yeah.
I'd never tried anything before ketamine. Not pot. I'd never been drunk on alcohol. I'd had a biological father who was severely addicted to many things and was extremely sadistic, so that was like my only way of rebelling. So I don't have anything else to compare the ketamine to. But I can say the experiences have been varied. some of them have been very much out of body, where I've literally left the body. I've even had the experience of looking back at the body on the couch, saying, I wonder if I should continue to breathe for him. Nah. He's doing okay. The first experience with ketamine with Dr. Early, I had no idea what to expect. And suddenly I looked against the wall and there was me. But I was about 8 feet tall, maybe shoulders 3 feet wide. I was wearing the same thing I was wearing at the time, laying there in the recliner. I thought, that's like really strange. And then I realized I was holding young me in my arms, telling me it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong to deserve all of the things that happened to you. And there's a phase when you're out of the body that is beyond crying, but is just as healing and just as profound, because you're not crying with the body anymore, or at least I wasn't. And I knew that was going to be some powerful work. So with ketamine, there are really two aspects. There's a purely scientific antidepressant effect that many have explained and are working on today of how it exactly works with the NDMA system and maybe other systems in the brain. There's also the psychotherapy aspect to it. So you kind of get both. And I've had some experiences where I have experienced past deaths that were, who knows if they were real or not, but they seemed very, very real to me. In fact, one was so real, when I awoke from my session, I looked over at Dr. Early and I said, we got to get a private investigator. I got to go find my parents. Because there was a particular scene where I was very emaciated, dying of cancer. My family was around the bed. I knew exactly where it was. It was in Seattle. I've never been to Seattle. It was in Seattle. And I started to back out of my body, not this way, but from looking down. And the family, I guess, realized that I had died at that point. And they were like starting to really cry and wail and sort of shake the bed. And I thought, I can't do this to them. I got to get back in the body. So I tried to get in. I kept bouncing against it. I couldn't do it. So I backed away, and I felt like I let them down. I was trying to communicate. Wait a minute, I'm over here. I survived this. But I wasn't able to because I didn't have a body to communicate with in this physical universe. So things like that have happened. Other experiences of being many other lifetimes that were so real, like looking at my hands, different color, different culture, different age, many different things like that. And then there's a phase when I am awakening from the session where the psyche is particularly open to psychotherapy. And we'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes on that, and it sort of locks in. So that's a third component of just getting an extraordinary amount of psychotherapy, 6 months worth of psychotherapy, maybe a year, in the last 15 minutes of each of your ketamine sessions. Now, I also want to point out with Dr. Early, we do the intramuscular injection. Most of the clinics around the country that are popping up are doing it IV, over about the same amount of time. I prefer the intramuscular injection. It's much more cost-effective, much easier to control, and we can always add a little bit more during the session if we need to. And then there is the after effects that the relief from the depression starts to last longer and longer and longer. The thing I love about ketamine is you start more frequently, maybe twice a month, maybe if you're really ill, maybe once a week. Now I think it's been like 6 months since I've had an injection. You back away from it. And I love that about it. And it has been As I say in my language, the only language I have, which is English, they don't have words. There's no words, there's no phrase to describe the salvation, the transformation, the new life, the new attitude. All of those things kind of lean towards describing it, but they don't thoroughly. And it's been a wonderful journey. And Dr. Early is a remarkable man who moved from Texas to Santa Barbara specifically to be able to do this type of therapy. And it's helped an awful lot of people. And later, if people have more questions, if we have a question and answer session, I'm open to all of that. But I can just say that for me, the ketamine has those 3 or 4 different beneficial components. Each one, if you only got one of those, would be 1,000 times better than any drug on the market right now. Any of the SSRIs, all of them. So I'm a fan. But I also want to say one other thing about it. It is not for me a pleasant experience when I'm on it. That's why I don't understand how anybody would ever abuse it recreationally. There's nothing recreational about it. I get a little bit nauseated. It's not a good feeling when the actual session, when I get back in the body and perceive, nausea and dizziness and so forth. Now, when I'm out of the body, that's a different story. But it's not a pleasant, wonderful feeling for me by any stretch of the imagination. But it's damn worth it.
I think hopefully in the future, what I love about doing, because I've been doing mushrooms and such mostly by myself or with a couple friends here and there for 21 years, and it is so hard to talk about these experiences with the general public, and that's why I love events like this conference where people understand, because eventually we'll all be kind of sitting around and we'll all kind of understand, oh, that feeling when you shoot through the information tunnel and then there's 4 doors and one of them has a club on it and you shouldn't go in, but you're compelled to, and then you go in and then you end up on stage in this panel moderating this fucking thing that you don't totally understand. It's like that, and all of you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. But one thing that's very important, I'm glad this set us up perfectly for Anna, as I was hoping would happen. We've already touched on a lot about forgiveness, both within yourself and I fortunately didn't have an upbringing where I had a lot of childhood trauma or anything. I guess I was rather spoiled in when I complain about my upbringing, I'm like, my curfew was 9 o'clock, it wasn't fair. And so I don't have the many things that you've had to go through, so I'm definitely not one to talk. I've struggled with some addiction issues, but even the small things of beating yourself up for the time you broke a bone doing something stupid, or made fun of someone when you're in high school that you wish you wouldn't have, or something like that. This is something, these kind of open loops that weigh on all of us all of the time, and this is one of the most important and incredible aspects of the psychedelic experience in mine, I think many people's experience. Anna, can you talk a little bit about kind of the importance of forgiveness in your work, how you go about kind of drawing that out and guiding people through the aspect of forgiving themselves and others?
Sure. Well, first I want to say that I am not a provider. So the psychedelic exploration that I've done is kind of similar to what you mentioned, Shane, about being 15, 16 years old and starting to dabble and then giving it a rest for a while and then coming back to it as an adult and realizing that there's an aspect of my spiritual path that seems to be very supported by occasional explorations into the world of not only spirit, but the connection of spirit and emotion and mind and body. So when I'm working with people, it is not that they're on any medicines, but what's important is to understand that the deep letting go process that we have been describing up here, that you probably have experienced in your own way, is identical to the kind of forgiveness that I am teaching and exploring myself without any substances. And it really is all about letting go and surrendering our suffering and realizing that we don't have to haul it around for the rest of our lives. We just don't have to. There is no obligation for us to suffer. And when you think about it, probably there's something inside of your own mind and emotions that knows your particular suffering angle so well. And so my question is, well, do we need to do it 20 more times? Do we need to do it 100 more times? Do we need to have 10 more years of that? Or can we just come to a place where we say, you know what? I want out. I want freedom. And that's what this kind of forgiveness is all about. And it shows up in our entheogenic journeys in a very profound and beautiful way. And also, we can take that and learn from it and bring it into our daily life. What I have discovered is that there's nothing wrong with any single one of us. We are beautiful, perfect, innocent beings of light. Every single one of us, everybody on this planet, equal beings of light. So, all we need to do is take off the extra, which is our pain and our fear. So this is really about letting go and taking off veil after veil after veil and just laying it down and saying to the spirit that gives us life, okay, please help me, because I don't know how to walk around like this anymore. I'm going insane with this pain and I need help. So there's this really deep reverence and humbleness that I bring to it, and then I bring when I do a session with someone or with a couple or with a group of people. And it's a very simple thing to learn. And once we learn it, we have it, but we need to practice it and we need to use it. So the good thing is that I see forgiveness as a door that we can walk through. And we need to walk many times through this door because there are many veils.
Unless it has a club on it, don't fuck with that door, by the way.
Yeah, well, this is the happening good door. And it has to do with letting go of our pain around our memories of what happened with other people, but also self-forgiveness of our own whatever ways that we've messed up and that we're still beating ourselves up. So that, I feel, is the most tender, most poignant place that any human being comes to, is a place of deep self-forgiveness. And so in that, we are all equal. We share growing in ego, and then we share learning how to take this ego apart, which is this forgiveness work, so that we can be free and we can walk around being this light that we are and share it. And also be tuned into our intuition so that we know where to go, when, we're in the flow, we know what our service is, and life becomes easy. And then we just have a lot to give. Every single one of us has so much to give, and the earth needs us now. So that's why I do what I do.
That's beautiful. So, Michael, so this is something that I often deal with as trying to figure out how to communicate these things to. I've always had little bits of psychedelic material in my act. My first album, like 11 years ago or something like that, had a mushroom joke that was like really silly about like things getting crazy or whatever. And that's kind of the only way you can talk about psychedelics to like the average people. I go and perform in comedy clubs to bachelor and bachelorette parties, and if I can get away with like maybe 5 minutes of psychedelic material, but like 10 is really pushing. It has to be a pretty cool crowd. After that, like I've lost everybody. And as you guys are talking, I'm kind of picturing my conservative small town from Wisconsin, Midwestern parents here listening to us talking about how we're all light beams, and you know, and you know, having to tell my mom I've decided to do iboga, and then her having to explain to her friends around of like, well, you know, Justin's doing computer programming, and Carissa's been working at the shop, and Shane, you know, moved to Africa to a drug cult, and he's a fractal now. So he's just, you know, zipping around in the universal unconscious and probably talking through my mouth right now. So, so Michael,
As one does.
how in the world, so you eventually, after your life had been changed by these things, you decided to take on an advocate role and make changes within the community. How did you, can you talk a little bit about that process and some of the barriers you faced and what you have been able to accomplish? And maybe even we can talk a little bit about what we see going forward.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we were talking about earlier. When I went down this path, it was really tough. The whole thing about doing cannabis at all. Part of that why is because my family, both my mother and father are in law enforcement, retired from law enforcement, family in medicine, military, government. So when I was faced with making a choice of going through what the medical system had to hold for me, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to die. If that's what's going to happen, I'm not going to go through that process. So it was tough, and I went on a journey searching. As I kind of mentioned before, I kept finding this Rick Simpson guy and this old magical oil. So I went to search and try to figure out what the heck was going on with that. Why? What, is this really true? And then trying to bring it up with my doctor, with my family. It's like, yeah, right. In fact, I think one of my doctors said, well, people just want to get high. And I was like, well, okay. So I went and searched, and I actually met people that had taken cannabis oil, and they had stage 4 cancer, and they were sitting there talking to me. They weren't dead. They were told, go home, you're going to die, make arrangements, and that's it. And here we were years later, and they were alive. So I went down that path. It was very scary. And when I got on the other side of that, I couldn't believe it. When I went through 2 surgeries, first one, quick growing masses, the second one was my throat started bleeding, and they said, well, it looks like it's spreading, and you know, we have to set you in for a next surgery. So we did. And after that, it came back that I was clear, that I was healthy. And I was like, wow. We've been lied to. And I started searching and going, okay, what the heck? Why is this happening? And yeah, I kept coming back that, you know, everything that I learned was wrong. Propaganda, that I was told a bunch of things that were not true. And it really was upsetting. So I actually asked the cannabis community, what the heck can I do to help now? I'm alive, you know, I'm ready to do something to help this process along, to wake people up, you know, tell the truth. And they kept saying, well, you know, one of the things you can do is run for office. So, careful what you ask for. Yeah, that was a tough one, family and deciding, but I did. I actually ran twice as a state legislative representative in Washington, where I live at, as a libertarian. And I got involved in grassroots lobbying, human rights, and I never expected, well, any of it, especially sitting here now, also helping with put this whole event on, etc., meeting these amazing people that I have. Never in my wildest dreams would I've ever expected all this. And I didn't understand how powerful cannabis is and what it can do for us. And a couple of years ago, I spoke at the Ashland Psychedelic Conference, and as I was preparing for it and I was going through, I was a documentarian. Well, I was a filmmaker before I got ill, and I grabbed the camera and I went out and I met tons of people, wonderful folks, doctors, scientists, researchers, and I'm preparing for my speech and trying to understand more of, you know, these psychedelics, entheogens, and didn't really understand it. It was like, wow, all these lights are going off, and we kept rewriting my speech. I realize, wow, the cannabis is a medicine just like the rest, but misunderstood. And we need to know this. We need to understand this. So it's been amazing to figure this out and to see what we can do, that we can actually do, that there's so many possibilities for us to find a way to heal. And yeah, so here I am. I never expected to do this, and so happy that we're starting to be able to speak openly and share this. And that's why I hope we can, you know, the big thing for me is part of what I did with the nonprofit is Project Positive Change. If we could just tell people what was going on, the positive truth, then we could change that. And so I hope that as we keep going forward, we normalize this more, you know, instead of calling it some crazy drug, you know, this wild experience. Yeah, I understand, you know, when we were younger, people did acid and mushrooms and stuff, but this is far, far more important, and that we need to be able to share that information. You know, the things that I've learned that I didn't understand before by going through this process is setting, preparing, going through the process, right? And then finding integration, finding a way to understand what the heck. You know, we've gone through this powerful medicine and the veil dropped. We're not in the same space anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. If we can kind of help treat cancer with boring old cannabis, who knows what a real drug might be able to do? I want to quick. Well, I'm not going to ask. Damn it, I'm in charge of this thing. I want to do the Q&A just a little bit earlier. One, so that you guys can ask a couple extra questions, perhaps, because we have about 15 minutes, and then so that we can maybe do something a little different and maybe do a little closing thing, and I'll get to say a little something to tie this all together and leave you with some nice words.
Ready for your question?
Yeah.
Hi, my question is about when, and I don't know if any of you guys want to take this on, but I'm wondering about the age when some of these things should be presented to the youth, you know, because a lot of them are dealing in a world that's just way too much going on, and I think that our youth is at a risk.
Well, can I answer that?
Yes, you absolutely can.
All right. I'm a mother. I have 2 kids, and my youngest just turned 21. So he's been a teenager not that long ago, and I needed to balance me doing some entheogens, mostly psilocybin, but also iboga and ayahuasca and other things. I didn't want to lie to him about what I was up to, but I also didn't want to say, yeah, just go party. You know, there's some middle ground there that I tried to find. One of the things that I told him a lot was focus on the plants. They come out of the ground. Stay away from anything that comes from a lab. That was a simple thing that I could tell him. Also, I told him not to get into anything that he was doing every day. Because then he wouldn't really know who he is without it. So those were the 2 main things that I told him, and yeah, he partied down a bit, but now he's 21 and he's pretty much over it. So and we also, this is the other thing, keep the communication open. I would rather have my kids talk to me and tell me things I don't want to hear than them shut down and do what I did, which was not say a word and sneak around and pretend in front of my parents.
Well, as a childless person, I think I'm a bit of an authority on this subject. I would say I go back and forth with this myself because I'm going to transition into your guys' perspective. From kind of like a neuroscience standpoint, you know, we've decided as a culture that like 18 years old is this arbitrary age at which, you know, you can make your own decisions and be an adult. But the prefrontal cortex, which is a lot of your decision making and impulse control and executive functions doesn't mature until you're 25. So part of me is like, oh, I wish you couldn't smoke cigarettes until you're 25, and I mean, I even would say that about joining the military, but let's not get too political. But then the other aspect that I think about is from a kind of evolutionary standpoint. This is something that was like a coming of age thing that a lot of that was just a normal part of our human history. What do you see when you go to Africa? What are they doing with their children?
Well, first, I'm a mother also. I have a 20-year-old son, and I believe, and I know that keeping the lines of communication open are so important, because I'm just curious of all the people here who experienced some kind of psychedelic medicine before you were 18. Okay, so should is a really big word. They should wait until they're older. They should wait until their prefrontal cortex is developed. Stuff happens, and it's important to really talk about it. And not only the plants, but where do those plants come from? How are they being cultivated? What is the energy that is there? It's important to just really keep those lines of communication open. And in the Bwiti, they're doing initiations anywhere between, with the medicine, anywhere between 12 and 18 or older as a coming of age. However, they have a whole cultural context that we don't. And that's very important. So just if they do go through those experiences, it's so important for us to all have support no matter what age we're.
You know, something, if I might, also when I was going through studying cannabis, one of the things that was really profound for me was you guys see all the weed series that they did, CNN and Dr. Carl Hart. A couple of years ago, and I went to the conference they did in Colorado. It was kind of amazing. I was kind of bummed when they first did that, because they were saying how, they were afraid of the developing brain and using cannabis and all this. And actually, that when he studied the data later, he said, well, no, actually, we found that it's helping. And when I studied it further, you learn more about different studies that they did. One in Jamaica, where they had two different sets of women that lived in the same environment, and that one set had no interaction with any kinds of drugs whatsoever, or cannabis, and the other did. And it was pre, during, and after them having their children. And the study, which was funded by NIDA, the main governing over our drugs in the United States federal government, but they actually yanked the funding afterwards, because the report by the doctor said that, it was beneficial. And part of that was the cannabinoids for the mother breastfeeding their child. And that those children were more well-adjusted and had a better immune system. So I can't speak to, what the other more strong medicine, but the more I'm now studying this, and you're saying that, some of these, folks from all the way back in the beginning of time are, kind of, I guess, microdosing the children on their way up. So I guess, again, the thing being mentioned here too about balance in nature and understanding these better, and understanding how they can be used, integrated back into our lives that used to be in tradition, going back as far as we can trace in history, right?
Do we have another?
Hi, on a similar note, I wanted to get you guys' opinion on recreational usage, with kind of the caveat that I feel that a lot of things have to do with the criminal system, because then you can't regulate things when they're illegal, and as well as the lack of education. But if you have an educated society and are able to even have, whether it's psychedelic spas or whatever places that people can go to, because I get disappointed when people sometimes poo-poo recreational usage, just because some of the journeys that I had that were at festivals with music, but it was after a time that I lost somebody very close to me, so it was still therapeutic. And how I think somebody had mentioned earlier that it's all therapeutic in a sense. So that's kind of my sentiment, but just how some people opinion on recreational. Thanks.
And thank you, by the way, for. I
almost forgot. I am raising funds for my chain of psychedelic spas that I'm starting. It's an idea that I had about 30 seconds ago, and I think it's really going to take off. Recreational. What do you guys think?
Well, I guess another one for me for the cannabis part. God, was it? Can't remember the gentleman's name, but he opened up the dispensary in Oakland, one of the largest, one of the first ones that they created. And he actually talks about how he had a discussion with one of the patients who said that, I'm not really a recreational user. I just like to get, or a medical patient, I just like to get high. And then he had the whole conversation about, like, really, what's a day like that, bad day that you had, and, I get up in the morning and tired and the drive and traffic sucks and, and then I get to work and I got to rush and I eat and I get a stomach ache and then I go home and the traffic blows and then the wife's yelling at me and the kids are going crazy and well, what's a day when you use cannabis? Well, I smoke some in the morning and traffic's not so bad. And I don't really care about what's happening at work so much. And I get home and everything's crazy and I don't care. I smoke a little more and I get a great night's sleep. He goes, really? It's not medical, huh? But I mean, yeah, the whole idea, people ask me, I've been traveling and I give presentations all the time now about cannabis, about, trying to change the perception of that. And at least for me in that realm, it's like, well, wait a second, and people ask me, well, if I go to the store and I get this, from the rec store, is it medicine? Well, but I agree with what you guys were saying too, is that I also caution the plant, where was it grown? Is it used with pesticides? Is it, a tortured plant? I mean, we could go further in this. You really need to be mindful of what it is that we're consuming, right? It's very, very important. And then we can learn again more. If we could start normalizing this, it would be a totally different situation that would be so beneficial for us.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to recreational. I've seen things go wrong. I've seen people get hurt. I've been hurt. I had a great time being 18 years old and in a situation without good set and setting. It was a very terrible experience that ended up being a great teacher to me. And I've also know of great experiences that people have at festivals, at gatherings, and even with recreational, we can still have intention. We can still have safety. We can still have harm reduction. There's even an intention there, like, I want to play. That's an intention. Have people watching your back, be hydrated, be protected, and you feel really free, right? So there's a sacred way, and even the Bwiti people who are microdosing, that's not recreational. Like, they're taking guidance from the plant. They are doing big medicine work, and it informs our participation in society sometimes. So, be safe, harm reduction.
Don't they traditionally bury you alive to simulate your own death or something like that with it, or some tribes?
That might be the Dagara. We haven't experienced that in the Bwiti, but there's some variations. They get creative for sure.
So
but
for no other reason,
we haven't done that
it's hard
yet.
to bury yourself. You do need at least a facilitator around to shovel you in there. Anyone else have any thoughts on the recreational?
I would just say that I look at life and all my decisions as vibrational decisions. So if it brings me up, then yes, feels good. If I'm starting to feel down, tired, low energy, paranoid, resentful, then I got to course correct. So I would say that would be true for however we want to use these medicines, with respect and with consciousness. It can be playful and it can be therapeutic, and sometimes it's both, right?
Just add one more thing that I love to do is be in dialogue with the spirit of what you're consuming, of what you're taking into your body. Be in dialogue with the plant spirit, with the medicine spirit. Does it want to take you? Maybe it's not a one-way street, that there's that at least awareness on some spiritual level.
Well, I took some today, so that might answer your question. No, seriously, you have to really respect those plants. If you don't respect those plants, they will kick your ass. There's no doubt about it. And really focus on your intention when it comes to these medicines, because your intention is one of the main things that it's all about. So when you really approach these medicines, you know, you better have a really clear intention with that medicine. Like I said, it will kick your ass.
You can do that.
It can do that. But at the end of the day, you know, it's all love. So.
Spanking. The medicines spank you sometimes if they don't like how you're holding them.
Tough love.
Yeah, it's a little tricky
Tough
because
love.
we always got to do these disclaimers, which is so strange because I perform in comedy clubs where my job is basically to peddle drinks to people. And if I were to like be like, hey, just before we get started here, let me warn you about the dangers of alcohol, I would be banned from every club that there is. So I do think that we're almost overly cautious sometimes, to be honest. If there was like a magic button where everyone either could never do a psychedelic or every single person in the world had to do a 5-gram mushroom trip, I would push the 5-gram mushroom trip button, and there'd be some rough experiences
Good
out there.
intentions.
But there's some rough experiences just in life in general. So as we wrap up here, we're just going to go down the line, and everyone's going to plug their stuff so you guys can find out more, and then we'll head out toward the back by the door so you can ask us individual questions as well. And I'll plug my crap. You can see 20 minutes of my film and the film presentation with the Q&A, and then also doing an hour of stand-up tomorrow. And I actually got one of my good friends, Mike Kaplan, who's a really funny comedian and has done tons and tons of ayahuasca and has lots of psychedelic material of him on his own as well. So there's going to be us two there. And if you do come, just remember there are no bad jokes. There's only difficult jokes. So.
Awesome, thanks, Jade. So again, my name is Elizabeth Bast, and my website is ebast.net. And iboga is one of the more medically sensitive medicines. It can go awry without proper medical screening and medical support. I have loads of safety tips on the iboga page and resources and cool links and articles and medical research, some of the best I've been able to find. So if you have someone curious, please check it out, and all of the reasons why you should not mail order it on the dark web. So please take a look, and I'll be here to answer some questions. Check out the book and art in the lounge, and yeah, definitely share that page with people who are curious about the medicine.
All right, you can find me at chorboogie.com. That's CHORBOOGIE.com. And yeah, you can see my artwork and everything on there. I'd just like to say thank you all and give yourself a round of applause for, you know, coming to this event and like really participating and like, you know, supporting something like this, because it's nothing but the truth.
BAST, EBAST.net.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you can find me at anaholub.com. That's ANAHOLUB. That's B like brother. And you can get my book in the lounge. I also have a CD there that has 2 guided meditations on forgiveness. And I also have several online courses. The newest one is called Forgive and Be Free of Your Addictions. And it has a whole lesson on plant medicine, also talks about subtle addictions. So it's a really good exploration, and I'd love to talk to you more about my work and how I can serve you.
And I think what I would like to do, I don't have any product here or website I'm promoting, but I would like to speak just a moment more about the medical use of ketamine. You know, every time, there's so many articles coming out now about how profoundly beneficial it is. And they always say, you know, club drug or whatever. They never say you know, an anesthetic that's used hundreds of thousands of times a year around the world safely in hospitals. You know, we're trying to get FDA approval. It's been approved since the 60s for anesthesia for children, for animals, for adults, but not for depression or PTSD. If we can get that FDA approval, then it'll be so much more accessible to so many, because insurance, governmental programs will pay for it. It'll be available to so many more people. And to the psychiatrists out there, I would say take a little lesson from Dr. Terrence Early and grow some bigger balls and be a renegade and actually do what you signed up to do, which is to heal, not just pacify.
Ooh, Bessie.
Yeah.
That's that.
You can find information or get through to me at projectpc.org. Yeah, there's information on there, more material that I'm working on. But also, if you could, I don't know if anybody's been mentioning, but part of doing this event, we took a lot of time and a lot of money to do, and like the logo and stuff that we made, if you can go to the auction, if you go to lapss.org, there's a bunch of items on there that people donated to help us to pay for this stuff. So if you could please go check that out. And again, we've got some stuff that we created, also the artwork of the logo that we created. If you can go on there and put a bid on some of those things to help us out, it would be greatly appreciated, so that we can pay for this and hopefully get more funding to do this again, so you guys can all come back and see another amazing group of folks speak about all the stuff that we need to learn about. We appreciate it.
And if you haven't been to the art and music and that kind of book area and whatnot, it's just through those doors, straight across to the right, and you'll kind of see signs. So make sure and check that out, and you can talk to these guys and get their books. How about a hand for the Helped by Medicine panel, everybody? Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the conference.